Hi, Adam Day here from eXp UK. I just thought it was worth posting a few brief videos about me and my background in estate agency, alongside some videos of how eXp works. I'm conscious that if you're thinking of joining eXp, you'll probably want to know who you'd be working with on it. So I'm going to split this into 2 or 3 videos, as I've got a few interesting stories from my time at starting up Hatched, being acquired by Connell's Group, and working at the likes of Easy Property, eMove and Tepelo for various well-known industry figures, which are quite insightful and will probably give you an idea of why eXp. So originally I started in estate agency in 1997, typical sort of story of being a relatively bright kid, but without the desire to learn. All I ever wanted to do from an early age was to work. In fact, I had my first business, I think at the age of 11 or 12, ABC Service is a really original name. I did dog walking and grass cutting and all that sort of stuff for the local residents. By the age of 14, I got into selling Coke at school, the brown fizzy stuff, which I bought in bulk from the supermarket and then sold individually at school during the lunch hour. So I was sort of entrepreneurial, I guess. I didn't realise at the time that was even a word, but I left school with 4 GCSEs, no A-levels whatsoever, and it was actually through a broken foot that I got into estate agency. So I went on holiday in July '97, and as I was walking into the local town, I jumped down some steps and ended up breaking my 4th and 5th left metatarsals, way before David Beckham did his. I ended up having to get an emergency flight home, an emergency operation, and yeah, I was laid up basically in plaster for a couple of weeks. So I was looking through jobs while I was laid up in this thing called a newspaper, and spotted this job as a junior negotiator with the closing date of the previous day. So I hobbled down to this office as quickly as I could and taught them to give me an interview. And anyway, they gave me the job. They must have felt sorry for me, I'm sure. But my first day was the 11th of August, 1997. And literally within an hour of being there, I absolutely fell in love with the estate agency. The buzz of the office, the vibe, the excitement of winning an instruction and selling a house, the variety of the job, and obviously the opportunity to potentially have a meaningful career when I only had 4 GCSEs to my name, frankly. But most importantly for me was the fact that it was, as an estate agent, we're working with people at an integral part of their lives, you know, life-changing moments. There's not many jobs where you can impact someone forever. Doctors and nurses for saving your life or delivering your baby perhaps, but I never thought, literally never thought that estate agency could be one of those jobs. But if you're an agent and you're watching this, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It can impact people's lives forever and they can remember you forever. That's an amazing thing. So anyway, I joined a company called Country Properties, which at the time was a franchise of about 20, 21 offices, and more recently, a couple of years ago, was acquired by Hunters. But over the years at Country Properties, I did all the normal duties you'd expect as an agent in the 90s. So any millennials watching this, this is what we used to do in the 90s. So we used to go through the applicant box with pens and bits of paper and cards. We used to call out our new instructions. We did a weekly mail out with actual pieces of paper in the Royal Mail. And then I eventually went on to valuing and winning instructions myself. I mean, what a buzz. One of my bosses, Dave Gallagher, nod to Dave, had been with the business when it started in the mid-70s, and he was one of the very first franchised estate agency businesses in the UK. In fact, someone told me recently that Country Properties, or Rogers as it were known back then, was the first ever estate agency franchise business in the UK. And so it showed how sort of forward-thinking Dave was about the business and how it should be run. Shortly before I joined, another example of that is Dave brought in a new business partner called Paul, who still runs the business to this day. Both of them heroes of mine in the estate agency. But Paul was a lettings guy, so he'd started doing lettings in 1995, and Dave had brought him in, and they decided to work together. I mean, that's so forward thinking. If you think about 1995, that was, you know, way ahead of their time. So together they were really far ahead of their thinking. You know, really impressive. We were the first to get mobile phones in the town. We were the first to have, to all of us to have PCs. We were the first with an estate agency platform. Core Systems we used, which is still one of the best systems I've ever used, by the way. We were the first with the internet, and therefore we were the first to have email. We were the first in the town to have Rightmove, and you know, we were the first at everything. That was what our thing was. We were the first to do everything. We refurbished our office first. We were, you know, we were the first mover at everything in the town, and that's probably where I got some of my sort of knowledge and ideas from, was those guys. But Rightmove was the game changer for me, and that's where I started thinking about how could estate agency evolve, and how it would change buyer search essentially. Because for me, Rightmove put those smaller tucked away agents on the same playing field as the bigger agents that had the bigger offices and the bigger budgets. And it used to be, back in the day, that the agent that had the most buyers would sell the most houses. Now, this sounds really obvious. It's a really daft thing to say, but back in the old days when there was no internet, getting those buyers to register with you when you had an office that was out of sight, behind the church or down a little alley or something like that, was very difficult, which is why you didn't really have bedroom agents back then. We'll call them bedroom agents now, but you didn't have them back then. But Rightmove came along and essentially started doing the buyer attraction for us. And I actually think agents got a bit lazy. It became really easy to sell houses in 2004, 2005, regardless of whether you were a good, bad or indifferent agent, partly because of Rightmove, partly because of the market, but Rightmove really compounded that. Not bad, I think Rightmove's great, but what it essentially got me thinking about was how estate agent could potentially evolve with some sort of online version, because Rightmove allowed me to sell properties anywhere in the country, regardless of where I was based. Impossible before Rightmove. And it was that eventually led me to starting Hatched, which was one of the very first online estate agents in the UK. Now, Hatched wasn't like the online agents you see today. Very, very different, much more detailed in what we did. I'll talk about it in another video, in fact, about a general online estate and my view of it now. I'll do that in another video. But it was still based on the premise, what we was based on was the premise of using technology to deliver more efficiency and automated communications, along with transparency and visibility for the customers. We grew the business organically through both sales and lettings without a single penny of outside investment. And contrary to the usual comments on the various forums over the years, we were actually profitable every single year except for our first year. Eventually in 2015, the business was acquired by the most successful and still the most successful property services group in the UK, the Connells Group, which I was hugely proud of. I mean, it was the best day of my life, apart from children and marriage, obviously. It was certainly a roller coaster, and it has been ever since, with stints at Easy Property and eMove and Tepelo. And over the next few videos, I'm going to tell you, firstly, a bit more about how Connells acquired Hatched, why Easy Property is in the position it's in, and what it's like to work for Russell Quirk, and what, obviously, this eXp thing is all about. If you want to find out more in the meantime, then click the link below, but until next time, I'll see you soon.